Well, hello everybody, guess who it is? It's me, and today Harry Potter doesn't want to stay in my background. Speaking of Harry Potter, recently I have started rereading the entire Harry Potter series, and I'm currently on this book, The Order of the Phoenix. This is my third time reading the series, and holy cow, every time I forget how good they are. They're so good. Oh my gosh. So because I'm sort of on like a reading marathon, I'm gonna recommend some books to you. Most of these books aren't series, so you don't have to feel like attached to read like 10 books. But yeah, let's get started. All the books I recommend I think are fantastic. You may not, but I think they're fantastic. I'm gonna recommend them as the one, starting with the one I think is the most fantastic to the one I think is the least fantastic of the fantastic books that I'm recommending. Obviously, number one recommendation would be Harry Potter, but since I said I wasn't going to recommend series, then that's not going to be number one. But read it anyways. So my number one recommendations is actually a close tie between two books. It's a tie between Willow by Julia Hoban and Every Day by David Leviathan. Willow is a book about a 17-year-old girl who accidentally murders her parents and ends up having to live with her brother as a consequence of that, and throughout the book she struggles with the death of her parents and thinking that it was really her fault when it wasn't. I read it because it was a book that I never read anything about before, because it is a book that talks a lot about self-harming, and that is something that I had never read about before in a story that I was very interested in. I also think since there are lots of people out there who do self-harm, it is a very relatable book. But it's just really good. It's really fantastic, so read it. The other one, Every Day by David Leviathan, is a book about a person, not really a boy or a girl, who every day changes bodies. Same mind, same thoughts, all that kind of stuff, just different body in a different place. Falls in love with one girl, and it's about how this person struggles to maintain a relationship with this girl when every day they change faces. It's really interesting because it makes you separate the soul and the body. Really interesting. Just read it and you'll see what I mean. So my next book on the list is also by David Leviathan. It's called A Lover's Dictionary. A friend of mine also read this at the same time I was reading it, and she did not like it, but I really liked it. I thought it was a really interesting, cool book because he wrote the book so that he gives you a word and a definition as the story, and each definition is just a little tiny bit of the story. However, if you read this book, you have to be prepared that it's not like any other book that you've read before. A, because the story is written in definitions, and B, because it's kind of a vague sort of story. There's not really character names. There's not really definite descriptions of the people in the story or exactly what goes on. You kind of have to infer for yourself, but I thought that was a really cool way to write a story, and I really enjoyed it. Next book on the list is called Butter by Aaron Jane Lang. This book is about a 16-year-old boy who is clinically obese. He makes a bet with some of his more popular classmates that he hates his life so much that he's going to eat himself to death on New Year's Eve. And you have to read it to find out what happens. I actually picked this book up because I thought it was about cannibalism. Because when it said on the back, eats himself to death, I thought that meant like he was literally going to be like eating his own arm until he died. That's not what it's about. But even though even though this book wasn't what I thought it was still really good. These next two books that I'm recommending, I believe might be trilogies, but I'm not sure because I didn't actually read the other three, or they were not when I read them. But if they are trilogies though, they're also those kind of trilogies where you can just really read the first book and be fine, and not really have a necessity to read the other two. But if you are so inclined to, then go right ahead. First book, it's by Rachel Ward, and it's called Numbers. This book is about a girl who lives in London, and she has the extraordinary power of when she looks into other people's eyes, she sees the date that they're going to die. So obviously she tends to avoid relationships with any kind of people until one day when the fantastic male protagonist shows up and oops. Yeah, it's a really good book. It's pretty great. And last but not least is this little book by Suzanne Young called The Program, if you can see that. She was the best-selling author of 13 Reasons Why, if you've read that book. This book is actually kind of scarily real because it's something that could theoretically happen today. It's about a society where depression and suicide are an epidemic and a curable disease, basically. Or at least people think they are. So if you show signs of depression or suicidal thoughts, they take you and put you in the program and try and cure you of your depression and your suicidal thoughts. However, the program basically just wipes all of your memories and you come out a completely different person. It's actually about a girl and a boy, as seen on the cover, who start out in a relationship and one of them gets put into the program and how the other one deals with that. I'm not going to tell you which one gets put into the program, you'll have to read the book! But it's really good and I quite enjoyed it. Alright, those are all the book recommendations I have for today. I actually really liked filming this video and giving y'all recommendations, so if you want me to do this again, feel free to put a thing in the comments that says, hey, do some books again. And if you have read any of these books or decide to read any of these books because of this video, also put it in the comments and say, hey, I read this book and it was great, or I've read that book and I liked it / hated it, or whatever, you know? So yeah, just some of my personal favorites that I really liked when I read them, and I hope you enjoy them as well, because reading is great. I love reading. Well, that's all for today's video. I hope you enjoyed it, and I will see you next Sunday. Bye! Hello everybody, my name is Harry Potter, and I like to play Quidditch and save the world from Lord Voldemort. Nay!